Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from RotoWire here with the big five takeaways from week 11 of the NFL season. So, first, the bounce back game. Yeah, Najee Harris is now strung together two good games in a row. 20 carries in each game. He's got a 99 and a 90 yards, but they were against two good rush defenses. New Orleans, and I know that the Baltimore got to him, and I know that now we've seen the Steelers get to him, but nonetheless, the New Orleans is still a top half run defense, and Cincinnati got back DJ Reader yesterday, so that was a huge boost. And so Najee Harris is now looking at almost 4.7 yards per carry in two games, and he scored twice yesterday. So now we start to wonder, was it the foot injury? I mean, because those are big Trent Richardson comparisons that Nat Harris had the strong rookie season, and then this year he looked terrible. But the fact that he's put together two good, very good games against two good defenses, that can't be ignored. So at this point right now, and if he's going to get that volume, and Jalen Warren suffered a hamstring injury early in the game, was ruled out. So probably missing time. Don't know for sure. But if Harris is playing at this level, Pittsburgh has every motivation to play him. They invested a heavy, I think the number 24 pick in the draft on him. So I do think he's going to be back in the equation. Right now, we temper it. We say top 20 running back. But look, those last two performances, yeah, those are more like top 15, top 12. The two touchdown game was clearly a high-end running back one performance. So, and especially we'll talk about other running backs later. So right now, trending up, and he probably will be a value in DFS for the short term. So he is a player to consider. So right now we reassess every week, right? Football changes fast. And that's why every week I do 3-week trends. I know the whole season picture, but if I always lose focus on the snapshot, then I lose focus of the season. Things can get away from us very quickly. So we always keep an open mind. And you know what? We make the adjustments as they need to be made. All right, the disappointments. And there's a bigger picture that'll come into later. Brian Robinson had a phenomenal matchup in theory against the Texans. But the bigger picture for Robinson is he's kind of being phased out. Gibson is the guy. Gibson is seeing more snaps. I believe it was 58% yesterday. And that's been trending now. It's been a few weeks. And Robinson's been fewer than 4 yards per carry, and he had, the Eagles was a good matchup. Less he got yardage, but it was 28 carries. His yards per carry not good. The Texans not good at opportunity there, and so we got to think about what's going on. And Antonio Gibson looks good right now, and I know Coach Rivera doesn't like Gibson's running back instincts, but I think it's become clear to Coach that Gibson is more effective. The team is better with him on the field. Robinson's a grinder, and he's not a very good one at that. And, my RotoWire teammate Mario Puig, who's very good at scouting, had a fairly low opinion of Robinson. You play at Alabama, you run behind what could be considered an NFL-level offensive line against college kids. There's plenty of room to run. So there's something to be said for that. And then another disappointment, I know I bring him up every week, but the trends just keep slapping me in the face. I won't talk long. It's Lamar Jackson again. There's just like no big upside anymore. He hasn't hit 25 total fantasy points since like week 3. And in most games, he's in the teens. And so, yeah, you're starting him because if you draft in a single quarterback league, your backup is probably not good. But if you have somebody like Geno Smith, it's real close. It's real close if you like waiver wire Geno Smith. But Jackson runs for enough to make him startable, but he just doesn't have that upside. So whatever cost was paid for on draft day, it was probably under the assumption that there was like week winning upside, but that's been gone for 2 months now. So that's a bit problematic as well. And then these narratives that come up about players, this guy's not good in primetime games, big stage, this and that. I don't really pay attention to it a lot, but it was in my ear a lot this week about Kirk Cousins, and I happen to be watching. I always watch all the games, but I happen to be a 3-game slate in the 4 o'clock window. And as Kirk Cousins was, imploding in this game against Dallas, it's like, wow. Is it really a thing? Is he really, a guy that struggles on a big stage? I don't know. But I will say this. I'll just talk about the game itself. Well, I talked about why Dallas struggled against the Packers. And I explained that when Anthony Barr was out, the linebacker, well, they moved Micah Parsons into an odd position. He wasn't rushing the passer regularly, therefore they weren't creating havoc. And I also mentioned that Anthony Brown, their cornerback, suffered a concussion and left the game, and they had already been down their slot corner, Jordan Lewis. So of course Aaron Rodgers killed him because Parsons wasn't their rush, and they were down 2 cover guys, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is, big fourth quarter comeback, and all of a sudden we think Dallas is a fraud. Well, I said going into that game yesterday, Micah Parsons is going to, and Barr didn't play, but you knew the coaching staff realized that they screwed that up, and they did get Anthony Brown back. Well, Parsons was wreaking havoc yesterday. And it was, the thing with Parsons is it's not just him. He gets to the quarterback when the offense pays attention to him, but it frees up other guys. We see Dorrance Armstrong and everybody else just coming in, getting after Cousins. So it's a ripple effect. And Micah Parsons is an amazing transcendent type player. And so, look, I can't really pin this on Kirk Cousins. He never had a chance, and you have Justin Jefferson. I get that. But when you're under pressure as quickly as you are, you got to get rid of that ball very quickly. And there's not much going on. But that all said, Kirk Cousins has 2 touchdown passes in 4 games and 1 or fewer in all the rest of the games. So the players on the offense he has are very nice. They're amazing. You have Jefferson, we have Cook, but I can't really say he's a top 12 quarterback. Matchup streaming, and if you pick the right week, but with Cousins, we know how it is. Sometimes you pick the wrong week, and that's not good. So if you have another option, a quarterback that's reliable, you're probably going that route unless you really feel compelled in a matchup. All right, we got some mixed messages here from the week. So Deontay Foreman, and again, there's a theory at the end of the show I'm going to talk about. It's going to talk about some of these running backs who had bad games. But look, Foreman's been excellent since taking over starting job in Carolina, and he's got 300-yard games. He's got a good number of touchdowns. But in the Cincinnati game a few weeks ago, negative game script, and he was scripted out of the game, had no opportunity. And then this week, the problem I mentioned going in, and I told anybody who had Foreman to sit him. And people probably thought I was nuts, but I explained why. I said Baker Mayfield is at quarterback, and Mayfield was facing Baltimore. Well, Baltimore played him twice a year, every year of his career. So the problem became they knew all of Baker Mayfield's tendencies, and they could put him in uncomfortable spots. And that said, they also weren't going to have to play the pass. They were going to play the run and put them in unfavorable down and distance, and therefore make Mayfield beat them, which they knew he wasn't going to be able to do. And that was why Deontay Foreman had a bad game. We don't always get these right. Sometimes the running back comes out and prevails, but this one, the writing was on the wall. It was fairly easy to see, but Deontay Foreman is an excellent running back. This was not his fault, but we watch the matchups every week. We make our determination if the player's good or not. So mixed message, good player, bad game, not his fault. And then the Bears, so Justin Fields got turned loose about a month ago. They finally let him just run his offense, right? Offense where he gets moving and he compromises defenders. They can't really commit to anything because they don't know if he's running, if he's passing. And it has really been wonderful. But it's been such a short time. Defenses never came in with an exact plan to stop him. It was too new. Well, the Falcons planned for him. And we like the rushing yards. Fields ended up with good rushing yards. He ran 18 times. At least 10 of those were designed runs. And now defenses are coming with the game plan. Okay, Fields is going to run. He's the primary thing to go after. Now, his athleticism will still allow him to make plays. But at some point, the lack of weapons around him become problematic. But basically, Falcons had film on him. They know it's a lot of RPO stuff. There's something the league dealt with. The league knows how to handle RPO. They dealt with that back when the Wildcat came out a number of years back. And, there are some quarterbacks, if you have enough of an offense around you, you can, like if you're in Jalen Hurts' situation where you have amazing receivers and, you have a great running game, you have everything working, you can integrate that all in. But right now, Fields and he got banged up. Now, apparently he's day-to-day per the head coach, and it was his non-throwing shoulder, but nonetheless, he's running a lot. He's taking hits. Now, some of he's not taking hits. Some of he's running 80 yards to the house and nobody's touching him, but he's still taking some hits. And he's also taking hits on passes too. And so, of course, he cashed in for fantasy again, over 20 points yet again. And look, until this gets snuffed out, I have to rank him as a top 3 fantasy quarterback because that floor is insane. It's 80 or more yards in 4 or 5 games. His floor was 60 in those 5 games. That is insane production. It's a cheat code. We all know that, right? And then Gabe Davis, another mixed message. So second straight game with double-digit PPR points, but I think it was the first time all year he had that. Double 2 straight games. It might be the second time, but it's very minimal, right? He hasn't had them in 3 straight games. And double digits PPR points in 5 of 9 games, but that means in the 4 of 9, he was in single digits. And he has 3 games with at least 17 PPR points, but overall, that one huge week he had, but other than that, and that was on low targets too, I think. But other than that, he hasn't been the upside player we hoped for. Now, Josh Allen hasn't been the level of passer we wanted. It's been a lot of interceptions. His touchdown passing has been down. His running's been fine. And the fantasy points for Josh Allen are fine. But ultimately, it's not the high octane passing game that we were kind of hoping for. So Gabe Davis, there are going to be opportunities, and I really like the Thursday game because Detroit, they can't rush. They can't cover. Jeff Okudah, per the coach, is not going to play. Got a concussion. He says, Dan Campbell says, I don't think he's passing concussion protocol for this one. So that really compromises things. And I think the Bills are going to want to get their passing game clicking here. And I think Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs are in a great, great spot. Anyway, next one, Miles Sanders. So Miles Sanders, 2 straight games with fewer than 6 fantasy points. Now, majority of his games is double digits, so he's fine. And now he's faced the difficult run defense. The Commanders are a good run defense. The Colts are an outstanding run defense. The internal line of DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, they're wreckers, man. They are amazing football players. Tough to run on them. And so, again, Sanders had a couple bad matchups. And I think without Dallas Goedert, I think the Philadelphia offense is compromised. He is a joker piece on the field. And when they don't have him, they're a little more predictable because Goddard lets them get into some looks that really confuse the defense because Goddard can block. He's not just a receiver. He can block. And there are 2 and 3 tight end sets. He's involved in those. They can use him in the screen game. They can use him on the isolation when the receivers are on the opposite side of the field. There's just so many things. And when he's not on the field, it really boils things down. It's less things for the defense to worry about. Miles Sanders is still fine. He's still going to be productive, but in the tougher matchups, they don't really have enough to get defenses off the scent. And so he's going to be, very dependent on matchup going forward, but you're still starting him in as a second running back every week. And then the huge fantasy, they won't spend long on this, but man, oh my gosh, Tony Pollard, they can't put the genie back in the bottle, can they? I mean, I know Jerry Jones wants to, they're paying Zeke, but at some point, and I love Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott's one of my favorite running backs, but I mean, how do you put Pollard back in the bottle? Right? And Zeke scored a couple touchdowns, right? But man, Pollard is just insane as a runner, a receiver. And Dallas, look, when's the last time they won a Super Bowl, right? Was it 27 years ago, maybe? I'm guessing, probably something like that. They have a shot. They legitimately have a shot, but they need Pollard on the field. They need him and CeeDee Lamb to kind of be the catalyst with Dak Prescott because those are their explosive players. You can't just, it's CeeDee Lamb's an explosive player, but you need 2. You need 2. And he changes the whole equation on defenses as well. So they really need to go with that. Now, T. Higgins was back. It was very nice to see that. Coming out of the bye, great to see that they use him. Look, he consistently wins middle of the field. He can win over the top on the perimeter. And, he was drafted as a top 15 fantasy receiver, and rightfully so. And it's just that, sometimes I don't know if it's a play calling. I don't know if Higgins is a little inconsistent at time, but they get into a funk. But, man, when they get him the ball, the good things happen. And hopefully when they get Jamar Chase back, both of them are clicking because, really – when defenses plan to stop Chase, that opens up a lot for Higgins because when teams try to stop Chase, they got to bracket it deep. And Higgins is just a beast in the middle of the field and underneath too. So hopefully that they get rolling, but man, Joe Burrow looked good. He looked good against a Pittsburgh defense that kind of owned him in week 1. And all right, so now the big picture of today. This is going to teach us good lessons for DFS. in fantasy lineups, maybe not as much, but the reason, because you're starting your studs in weekly lineups, you're never sitting a Saquon Barkley, you're never sitting a, Jonathan Taylor. That's of course not. But what we're noticing this week, there were about 5 games where defenses were facing a team with a great running back and with no passing game to fear. All of these teams set in to sell out to stop the run. It started on Thursday night with Green Bay. Green Bay played Tennessee. Green Bay sold out to stop Derrick Henry. Now, Henry cashed a check for fantasy. He rushed for a touchdown. He threw for a touchdown. But the yards per carry, he had nothing going on. And here was the backside. Here's where we start to learn them. In DFS, you go in and you're like, well, that was a 1-game slate, but just pretend it's a Sunday game, right? And you're looking at this now and you're like, well, it's Ryan Tannehill against the great, very good pass defense of the Packers. Well, you wouldn't consider him because you're thinking Green Bay's a bad run defense. And you're like, well, you play Derrick Henry in that game. And you're not even thinking about starting Ryan Tannehill. But what I'm trying to do when I'm breaking these games down is I'm trying to anticipate game plan. I'm trying to see how defenses approach them. And I call the game plan right. I said that the Packers had a great chance of coming in and just loading the box to stop Henry. And I thought with Jair Alexander, now Eric Stokes, the other corner is out there, moving Rasul Douglas on the outside. He's played a slot for them. And I thought for sure that they would hold up against the Tennessee receivers. I thought it'd be no problem. But that wasn't the case. Basically, it was all one-on-one coverage because there were so many men committed to the run. And Ryan Tannehill was on, and he had favorable matchups. In that there wasn't much safety help. So if his receivers got a step inside and Tannehill made the throw, these were big plays waiting to happen. And so this is where your contrarian angle in DFS works. And these are the things that ruin us when we're trying to make game projections, because we can't, it's hard to say, like I said, a great run defense, or I should say a bad run defense against a great running back. You're like, check that box. But NFL can, and we learned from Bill Belichick, right? You can always take something away. You always can. 90% of the time, you can take it away, but it's what you pay for on the back end. And that's why sometimes we break down teams like the Vikings. The Vikings, well, it's like, all right, if you try to take away the run, well, they got Justin Jefferson. And if you try to take away Justin Jefferson, well, they've got Dalvin Cook. And so now you're like, these teams are a little more difficult because you have something else to go on. So these teams that are multidimensional, they have a little more. But the teams that have, and there are a lot of teams in the NFL right now, the Houston Texans, Dameon Pierce, nobody fears Davis Mills. And Saquon Barkley's been cashing a check too, but Saquon Barkley had a bad game. And why did he have a bad game? Because the Lions said, we're going to take you out. Daniel Jones beat us. And Daniel Jones couldn't beat him. And a bad quarterback more than that is not going to beat you. And we're going to see more and more of this, right? And Jonathan Taylor, kind of the same deal. I don't think Philly was worried about Matt Ryan. And Jonathan Taylor had 28 carries, and he was a couple. I had him on the prop going over, and I was like, oh, and he couldn't get one more. He needed one more carry out of the guy. He needed one more yard or 2 yards, and it didn't hit. But it was like, but what they did was he was 3.8 yards per carry. And I thought for sure Taylor would break one long run against this defense, but they sold out to stop him. And I didn't think they'd be able to do it to that. I thought if Philly sold out, it wouldn't happen. But again, we learned this. So, and are there any running backs I missed in that scenario? So it was definitely as Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Dameon Pierce, Derrick Henry. Oh, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb got sold out against too. The Buffalo sold out, and they said Jacoby Brissett beat us, and Brissett threw for over 300 yards, and he threw for multiple touchdowns, I believe 3. And that was the Tannehill game. So that's your edge in DFS. If you can, you're going to be wrong, but if you want to win big, you got to play that angle, because that's a contrarian angle, and that's what separates you from the group. And when that hits, most other people don't hit with you, because who's starting Ryan Tannehill against the Green Bay Packers? Like nobody in their right mind, right? All right, so I think that's good for today. Let's see if we got questions here. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, we got a bunch from MSA. Thoughts on Barkley's. Oh, good. I went over that. Yeah, and I think that's the lesson to be learned here. Game script tonight. So this game is being played in Mexico City, and that's really important. Denver is the Mile High City, 5,280 feet. This is in the 7,300 range. And so San Francisco is very smart. They brought their team to a higher elevation place, I believe in Colorado, for a few days to acclimate to altitude a bit. Of course, Cliff Kingsbury did not do that. No, he would never do that. And so there could be a conditioning issue. Now, we look at this game, and first of all, Arizona's down their top corner. Byron Murphy's out. They're down 3 linemen, but really 4 because Justin Pugh's been out forever. They're down 4 starting offensive linemen. Their quarterback is not expected to play. And Russell, wow, I was called him Russell Wilson. Same thing. Kyler Murray. I didn't mean that. Not the same thing. They're different. But yeah, so I mean, right away, we look at this game, and there's going to be a big coaching advantage here. And Arizona, they don't blitz as much as they did earlier in the season, but they do rely on getting pressure. But they are going to be in a whole world of hurt. And actually, their nose tackle, and his name evades me, if I remember Sharp, but I can't think of his last name. He's been an IR, and that run defense takes a hit with him being out. Well, Shanahan should have a very nice plan for this game. And the plan will be versatile, though. It's not, you're not going to run, but they're going to use some play action. They're going to use some definite ability to get Brandon Ayuk freed up. Brandon Ayuk is going to have a beautiful matchup. I mean, Deebo Samuel, too. And I don't know how yet the full picture for Deebo. Deebo hasn't been very good for fantasy this year. Yeah, I don't believe he's had more than 10 touches in a game. And I think that it's going to take them some time, but they're going to have to acclimate this whole thing with I call it positionless football, where you have McCaffrey and you have Deebo, and those are the guys that are positionless. And then even Kyle Juszczyk, he's a fullback, but he does so many things. And so you basically have 3 players that they can manipulate defenses with. And then that allows them, Nixon, Mitchell in the running game, Kittle certainly with the versatility as an amazing blocker and a great receiver. And then Brandon Ayuk has just been the guy at receiver, about 80 yards a game. And so, but I think nonetheless, I don't know how much they're going to pass, because it could be one of these things that if the running game gets going, we've seen Kyle Shanahan just say, you know what, running game's humming. We're just going to throw the ball 15 times and be done with it. And 15 could be high, but I think he's still working on getting Jimmy Garoppolo ready for a Super Bowl run too. I think he's feel comfortable with that. So all that said, his prop looks like 247.5 yards. This is a tricky one, because if they get into the run game real heavily, they may not have to throw a lot, but there could be some big plays in the passing, be that screens to McCaffrey, which they haven't run a lot of yet. And there could be some yardage after the catch, especially if Deebo gets the ball or Ayuk. They really could rake it up. Now, I would overall think Garoppolo probably goes less than this, but I have some real paths where he goes over. The main paths under are that they don't have to throw a ton. If Garoppolo is held to 20, 22 pass attempts, it's going to be hard for him to reach that. And I don't think that we're going to see Arizona keep up on the scoreboard where they're going to push a shootout here. So that now McCoy at 224, I'm going under on that one, because the 49ers, first of all, it's very predictable where DeAndre Hopkins lines up. I would imagine that Charvarius Ward moves over on him. Now, I don't know if they're going to shadow, but they should. They'd be foolish if they didn't, because there's really nothing else to worry about. Middle of the defense should be fine. And I don't know how much they get going. They're going to need Connor in the screen game. It's going to be hard to run on them, but Connor in the screen game would help them out. I mean, they're down Zach Ertz, and Marquise Brown has not been activated. So I think that's a pretty easy let's, because McCoy's going to be under a lot of pressure. I mean, he's very good at getting the ball out, but this is not a good matchup for him right now. And then Hopkins, again, it really matters if Charvarius Ward is going to be. If Charvarius Ward is on him the whole game, then there's not easy free throws to him. If Ward's not on him, then Lenoir would have probably back off him a bit, and that would give a lot of pitch and catch. And so that's where the rub is. If I'm coaching, I am making it a point to put Ward on that side, because, again, Hopkins rarely moves. He's on the left offensive side. And the yardage, I'm saying less for sure on the yardage for him. I just don't think there's big plays to be had against his defense in the pass rush with 4 offensive linemen. It was 3, but it's 4 missing because Pugh's out. And so I would say less on that. McCaffrey on the rushing yards. So I do think he gets a big run at some point in this game, especially if he's handling carries in the second half. And I do believe altitude is an issue. So I do think McCaffrey goes over that. I hope it's not all coming in the pass game. I hope it's in the run game. But I think there'll still be a big run there. Connor, I believe, as a receiver, he's more effective than a runner. I just don't think with those offensive linemen missing, I don't think there's big runs to be had. And I think they're going to trail, and I don't think they're going to be able to go to a run-heavy script. So I think Connor goes less than that. And then Isaac. So it's all about the passing game usage for Kamara. Kamara seeing 9 and 10 targets a game. And then all of a sudden against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, the games they really needed Kamara as a receiver, he saw 4 targets in each game. Now we saw him used a little better yesterday, which was good. So that was positive. I do think they're going to get back to their roots. They realize he's their guy. They have to throw to him to be successful. So I think I think he does trend up because it's all about how they use him, though. And when they have a really rugged, like yesterday was a rugged rough patch, I bet the under on his rushing yards because there was no way I thought he was getting that against the Rams, and he didn't. Rondale Moore, 5.5 receptions. That one probably goes over. He's getting 8 to 10 targets a game. Middle of the field, you can get some done against the 49ers. I think that mitigates pass rush. Yardage is tight. I'd be inclined to say he gets 65 yards in this game. I can be inclined to say he goes over because he may be their one means of moving the ball, but there's not going to be a high volume passing game. But there aren't many other options, right? Randy, all right. So I do think the 49ers coast in this one. Because I think that altitude's going to be a real problem for Arizona. They didn't prepare for it. Their offensive line is so beat up. It's a wrong team to come in with no offensive line against and, backup quarterback. I think the 49ers, they blow the doors off them here. So I think that's just the route I go. On the team total, I'm definitely going over on the 49ers individual team total. It's probably somewhere in the 27 range, but I think they coast into the 30s in this game. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Randy, for 2 years, I warned you about MVS. Oh, my God. Yeah, it's not his fault. I mean, he's a situational deep threat, right? And speed. See, GMs understand this idea that John Madden talked about today with speed kills, right? And having a guy who's just fast who can stretch the field, it stresses the safeties. Even if he doesn't catch passes, it opens things up for the rest of the team. It was back in the mid-90s. This guy, Sean Jefferson, was a guy. He was with the Chargers back in the day. And people were, he stinks. I go, yeah, but he's fast. And I go, well, what's your point? I go, he opens up everybody else on the field. And so once in a while, he'd have a catch and it'd be like, ooh, he had an 80-yard touchdown. But that wasn't the point. The point was, it was for the NFL team. But you're right. Should I trade away Kamara or Mixon and Pittman for Diggs and Zeke? I would not be seeking out Zeke right now. I don't know how Dallas puts a genie back in the bottle. Zeke's still going to play, but I just don't know how they minimize Pollard's role. He's just killing defenses right now. But if you can pick up Diggs, that really, I mean, Pittman right now, because when they have bad matchups, it's going to be problematic. Matt Ryan is so limited. I would be inclined to keep Kamara mixing in that 5 touchdown game. So while that's still in people's minds, and the fact he was knocked out of concussion, that may still be prevalent there. So I would probably go that route. You have Kamara, Mixon, Henderson. Well, Henderson's a drop right now. I mean, he had 2 carries and he was out yesterday. They let him start and then they benched him. Kyron Williams for the second week in a row had more work than him. So that's not good for him. So anyway, if you know what, you need the running back. So, well, you know what? I would not make that deal. You need Kamara and Mixon as your top 2. You need those. As you don't want Zeke as your number 2 right now. When they have tougher matchups, I don't know how that production is going to be. So I know I would stand pat on that. Randy. Oh, no, you're fine, man. Field. I don't remember. I think it's a different stadium in Mexico City. I don't think it's the same stadium. And I have to go up.
No, can I turn it on?
All right. So you trade away Barkley and Fields for Aaron Jones and A.J. Brown. Let's see. Barkley and Fields for Aaron Jones. You know what? I think as long as you have a good quarterback, yeah, you have Herbert. So you know what? Yeah, you're dealing out a surplus. And what we saw yesterday when I was talking about it, well, defense are going to start planning now for Fields a bit, and we'll see what happens. But I think there's enough limitations in the Bears offense. I think it's a sell high moment. Now, I worry about Barkley coming up, the bad. Yeah, I don't think that was, a guy explained why that happened. But I think if you get Aaron Jones and A.J. Brown, yeah, I think that gives you a lineup advantage. That gives you one extra starter. And I think that's important at this point in the year. Kamara, Pacheco, and Jameson for Walker and Pickens. So I think Kamara, and I know he had those 2 4-target games, but I think ultimately he's the most valuable piece. Ken Walker's an excellent running back, but if you've noticed, he's getting a lot of boom bust, a lot of little, and once in a while he breaks a big run. If he doesn't have a big run in a game, his fantasy numbers aren't going. He had 2 poor fantasy games, and that's because he didn't break the big run on those, and that's not always going to happen. Big runs don't always happen. I think I prefer the Kamara side because Kamara's in there. Pickens had the game yesterday, but again, quarterback missed him a bunch. That's just some bad quarterback play they have going on there right now. And George, let's see, time to hand the reins back to Mike Evans I think Mike Evans would be fine. I like Mike. I'm in my early DFS looks there. All right, let's see. Pacheco, 10 people. Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the problem with Pacheco. Pacheco, it's all carries, and that's fine, but there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling at all. All right, Randy picked up Ebner and Ingram as speculative ads. Ebner will be game flow, right? You didn't do much in this game, but he's getting some time on the field, and as a flex, he may get some receptions. He's a receiver. He's really a receiving back. I don't see him as a running back. He's a receiving back, and that's good to have. Keontae Ingram, he's going to get some work, right? Still wondering how good he is, but again, his line, both of the Bears have good run blocking. The Cardinals don't. So Ingram worries me that they're not going to have much blocking, and if they have any type of difficult matchup, but there's no reason to. So I think both are fine, and they both will have usefulness. But we saw Montgomery bump up to 80% snap share from the 70s. So but I think Ebner, because of his pass catching chops, I think he has a little more usefulness. I would go after Etienne more than Mixon. Etienne's coming off a bad game, but it was predictable. But overall, I think that's the way to look there. And George can play the Vikings defense against the pass this week. I think that's very attackable because the Pats want to run, and that's the one thing the Vikings do. Don't worry about Dallas. Dallas is Dallas. Tony Pollard got done as a receiver, but Minnesota's ridiculous run defense, and that's going to be a struggle for New England. And if they got to put the ball in Mac Jones' hands, that's a bit of a problem. Now, the pass defense in Minnesota is not good, but they got a pass rush, and that pass rush should get home. And so I think Minnesota's a solid play. Yeah, Randy, it's a good question. So on Wednesday, I'm going to break down all 3 of the games. I'm also doing the Monkey Knife Fight show early. So I'm doing a show with them to break down 3 games, but I'll do my live stream on Wednesday. It's going to be different than the usual one. It's going to be going over all 3 games. I'll break those all down pretty good for you guys. All right, everybody. Yeah, you're welcome, Randy. All right, everybody. Remember, if you like this, please click the like button if you're on YouTube, and subscribe would be great too. And if you want to check out RotoWire for free, go to rotowire.com/try. No credit card, just email address and you're good. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and good luck in all your fantasy football